Hey guys, Hamaji here. Today we're going to be building another premium custom keyboard. As you could probably tell from the title, this keyboard costs roughly $550, which is pretty expensive. Now sometimes I do get boards for free, but I'll still have to purchase quite a lot of boards and other parts for my videos, which can be really costly. So if it's not too much to ask, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video or subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Alright, so let's take a look at the parts for today's build. First up, we have the keyboard. This is the Voice 65. It's a gasket-mounted 65% keyboard from Owlab. I was actually meant to make a video on this board quite a while ago, but life happened, so unfortunately, I had to push this video back by a few weeks. The Voice 65 retailed for $329, and I'm really excited to build it as it is one of the most unique looking boards I've ever received. I also have the white version of the keyboard, so it should look really clean. Next up, we have our switches. I'm going to be using Alpaca V2s. I've heard many great things about these switches, and I've wanted to try these for a very long time. These are linear switches with a 62-gram bottom out weight, so they're a little bit lighter than my personal preference, but are also really smooth. They've actually been lubed and filmed by my friend Revamp Keeps, which has saved me a lot of time. As for the keycaps, I'm going to be using GMK Honey. My friend actually lent this to me for the video, which I really appreciate. I think they'll go really nicely with the white Voice 65. And as usual, we're also going to be using Duroc V2 screw-in stabilizers. I use these for pretty much all of my builds and I highly recommend them. Space Cables has also sent a GMK 8082 custom coiled cable. The overall build quality is great, the coil keeps its shape really well, and most importantly, it looks absolutely gorgeous. These have YC8 connectors instead of the normal aviator connectors purely because I asked for a special batch, so thank you Space. Alright, so let's start off by unboxing the keyboard. The Voice 65 comes in this clean minimal gray and yellow box which you slide open. Inside the box we have some gasket strips, plate standoffs, and rubber feet. We also have 3 plates, 1 aluminum plate and 2 polycarbonate plates. Aluminum plates are much stiffer compared to polycarbonate plates, which provides a more rigid typing experience and usually sound fairly high-pitched. Polycarbonate plates are much more flexible and will also usually provide a thockier and more poppy sound signature. They also work really well with alpacas, so I'm going to be using it for today's build. We also have a hot swap PCB. It comes with a standard anti-layout and a south-facing 5-pin switch configuration. South-facing switch configurations are always a great choice to avoid switch interference, and having a 5-pin design also removes the need to clip switches, which I am really happy with. Hot swap PCBs are and will always be my favorite type of PCBs as they are so convenient to use. Plus, I always use a standard anti-layout for all of my builds, so its lack of flexibility is not a problem for me at all. The PCB also comes with individual RGB lighting, so if you really like RGB, that's definitely a huge plus. Lastly, we have the Voice 65 itself. It comes with a lot of foam, which I really like because it gives us a lot of options with how much dampening we would like in our board. The overall build quality of this case is pretty good. It's probably one of the lighter keyboards I've worked with, but not to the point where it feels cheap or poorly made. The overall design of the Voice 65 is sleek but stylish. I'm a huge fan of the overall shape, but the part that makes this keyboard really stand out to me is the overlapping of layers where the top and bottom chassis cuts inwards while the middle layer juts out to make the rotary knob pop out. It makes the overall profile of the keyboard a little more distinctive. On the bottom right, we do have a small blocker which to some people may not be very attractive, but honestly, I don't mind it. The side profile of the keyboard is also very minimal. The top and bottom chassis come together but leave a little bit of space to allow the middle section to be visible, which helps to add a bit of contrast to the keyboard. The USB-C port is also located on the right side of the keyboard. On the bottom of the Voice 65, we have a custom brass weight, which I really like. It's fairly small compared to brass weights that some other keyboards may have, but I think this really fits with the overall minimal design of the board. It's also machined really well and fits in seamlessly. On the right side, we have the RGB strip and rotary knob. Unlike other keyboards, this rotary knob is attached to the side of the keyboard, making it a little more minimal than if it were on the top. It feels more like a mouse scroll wheel rather than a volume knob. The rotary knob provides some minimal feedback when you scroll it, which honestly wasn't super satisfying, but it's alright. Unfortunately, the rotary knob on my Voice 65 does not work. I contacted Owlab and we did some troubleshooting, and it seems like the problem is most likely hardware related, so they are sending me replacement parts. I appreciate them being so responsive and helpful, but as a consumer, this was definitely a little frustrating. Apparently, this was a unique issue with my board, so as much as I want to say that it was faulty hardware, I definitely could have messed up my Voice 65 as well. So yeah, it is a little annoying, but they've been really helpful and I genuinely do appreciate that. Anyways, let's move on to our build. The Voice 65 is made up of 2 main parts. It has a top chassis and a bottom chassis. The top and bottom chassis are held together via 8 screws, which would normally be a pain to remove, but is pretty easy to do with my electric screwdriver. The top chassis is comprised of 2 pieces which are held together with 10 more screws. The upper piece is what you'll mainly see when using the Voice 65 on your desk, and the middle piece is where the two daughter boards are hidden away. Both pieces have small tabs which are for the pour on gasket strips. There are a total of 16 pour on gasket strips which are spread out across the top and bottom chassis. These pour on gasket strips are really easy to install and help to provide a more even and flexible typing experience when the plate gets compressed in between the two pieces. So I actually installed the switches onto the PCB and plate and tried to put it back in, but the PCB could not fit into the top housing. At first I thought this was a manufacturing error or that I got a faulty product because I never saw anyone else having this problem, but it turns out that the PCB actually has two parts I needed to break off, the top and bottom piece. These breakaways do not come in future batches, but it definitely caused me a lot of confusion and I was terrified of breaking the entire PCB if I didn't snap these off properly. Thankfully, I was able to take them off fairly easily and it could fit into the top housing properly. Okay, so let's move on to the stabilizers. I'm going to start off by separating the stabilizers and using the Holy mod. It's pretty easy to do and I've actually made a proper tutorial video if you want to use this mod for your own stabilizers. Basically, you just want to get a fabric band-aid and cut it so it fits into the stabilizer stem. Then you want to slide it in with a tweezer, cut off any excess and press it down until it sticks. Repeat this for all of your stabilizer stems and then we can move on to lubing. As always, I like to use Krytox 205G0 for all of my stabilizers and I apply a pretty generous amount onto the housings and stems. And once they have a nice, thin, even coat, I put them back together and start lubing the wires. I do not recommend using dielectric grease or any lubes thicker than 205G0 with the Holy mod or your stabilizers will feel too mushy. Once I've lubed my stabilizer wires, I reassemble my stabilizer and repeat for the rest of them. And after that, I screw my stabilizers onto my PCB. Sometimes my stabs will still have a bit of rattle, so I'll have to add a bit more lube into the back to make sure that it sounds as silent as possible. It is the most important mod you can do with any keyboard and you should not underestimate just how much time it can take to mod your stabilizers. Be patient and take your time with it. So, with the stabilizers complete, I can now reinstall the switches. The polycarbonate plate is pretty flexible, so I had to push the plate onto the switches to make sure that the plate was mounted securely. As I mentioned before, they gave a lot of foam with the keyboard. The Voice 65 comes with a silicone PCB mute pad, pour-on PCB foam, case foam, and spacebar foam as well. I'm going to be trying out two configurations, one with only the case foam below the PCB and another with a silicone mute pad and spacebar foam as well. So to reassemble the Voice 65, I have to put the assembled plate and PCB into the top housing. The plate is secured in place with these tabs on the sides and will be squished in between the two layers of pour-on gaskets. This helps to spread out the force and makes the typing experience feel more bouncy, and it should feel especially soft and bouncy with the addition of the polycarbonate plate. Once the plate and PCB is in place, I can screw the top housing back together and carefully connect the JST connectors from the PCB to the daughter board. And after that, I can secure the top housing onto the bottom housing. And with all of that done, I can finally install the keycaps. So the overall layout and typing experience of the board is great. The typing angle is also extremely comfortable, which makes it easy to use on a daily basis. The 65% layout also allows me to have arrow keys, which I find absolutely essential for daily use. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the board without the foam in the middle of the plate and PCB. It has a little bit more pop and feels just a tiny bit more flexible. I don't have the most sensitive hands, so flex isn't something I can really detect, but there is definitely a difference. If you have the Voice 65, the way you set it up really just comes down to preference, and if I had more time, I would love to experiment with this board way more. Again, I think the board looks absolutely stunning, and I think that GMK Honey is a perfect match for this board. This is definitely not going to be my daily driver, but it is still an amazing keyboard and I really like it. Anyways guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do consider subscribing and liking the video. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or join my Discord server as well, discord.gg/Hamaji. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.